Welcome to our community development meeting. It is May 23rd, 2024. The time is 10 a.m. In attendance are Commissioners Matari and Duncan. Commissioner Burks is excused. There are no opening remarks. Are there changes to the agenda? Okay. And polls for conflicts of interest?
No conflicts.
None either. And we have no public hearings, so we'll go right into deliberations. Item 1, MSF 23-0006, Bennett Estates. So this is a major subdivision final. And Vlad.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development. I will be very, very brief. This is a request for final approval of a major subdivision that the board approved preliminarily last summer. This project consists of 16 lots on 80 acres off of Highway 53. The applicant, upon receiving an approval from the board, had gone in and constructed all of the interior infrastructure improvements, including a road and a cul-de-sac. They have submitted a road development agreement as well as a warranty bond with the Lakes Highway District. No bonding was required through the county. I have visited the site. It appears that everything has been done to comply with the preliminary conditions of approval. We did follow up with all the agencies to make sure that their conditions have been met as imposed by the board last summer. Therefore, we don't have any outstanding issues. We request that you give your approval so that they can go to the recording stage of the process.
All right, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, motion.
I move that we approve MSF 23-0006, Bennett Estates.
Second.
Commissioner Matari?
Aye.
Chair Duncan?
Aye. All right, item 2, CUP 22-0020, Brand RV Park. And Ben.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ben Tarbutton for the record. I do have a presentation prepared for you. This is a conditional use permit for Brand for an RV park. If you'd like me to go through that presentation, I'd be happy to do so.
I would.
Okay, perfect.
Do you mind pulling that up for me, Glenn?
Sorry.
She's the applicant. She's the applicant for the next.
Well, they need to call. Yeah, she needs to call in.
Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is a conditional use permit CUP 22-0020 for Brand Recreational Vehicle Park. The project is located kind of at the southwest corner of the intersection of Elder Road and Highway 95, right across the street from the Fighting Creek gas station and smoke shop. The project site is located in the agricultural zone. The comprehensive plan is country designation. The proposal includes 36 acres in the ag zone with 19 RV spaces. There is proposed to have a non-community public drinking water system, a greeter station, an office for staff, a pavilion or picnic area, maintenance, coffee stand. There will be a proposed dump station and septic, walking trails to support the facility, disc golf, horseshoe, and so on. They do have some options as they're proposing with regards to restroom facilities or shower facilities. It's going to be either a shower and bathroom facility for both patrons and staff, or a staff-only restroom facility located inside the greeter station or maintenance facility, or they may have both. So they're leaving it up to the applicant to determine in coordination with DEQ and the surrounding agencies. So they are working on one of those options. The access will be directly off of Elder Road. They do have hours of operation for reservations and check-in and so on. And there will be a camp host through the months of May and October. And then they do have a vegetative screening, which they have planted many trees on site. Here is a site plan of the proposal. As you can see, here is kind of the entrance off of Elder Road, coming in to serve the site interior. These are the 19 RV spaces. Again, conceptually, this is kind of a pedestrian walking trail, hiking trail. Some of the amenities, as you may see, there's the maintenance facility, the coffee, where's coffee is right here, as well as the potential restroom facility here, and the necessary parking. Pictures of the site, as you can see, this is looking, of course, to more of the north. You can see the Fighting Creek gas station. This is looking more to the south, interior to the site. Overall, it's pretty level, flat. There are some gradual slopes as it comes down to Elder Road and Highway 95. This slide is meant to kind of show the surrounding residential uses. You can see them in those arrows there. From what I understand, these locations are a little bit more elevated to the project site, and so they will have a little bit more of some visual impact. But again, based on the existing vegetation and the proposed and planted vegetation that they have on site, conceptually that would visually screen the proposed use. This is again another kind of an idea showing the relation of those residential structures to the project site. Agencies with jurisdiction have been solicited comments. There were no major concerns or oppositions or objections. Building division, of course, will require a building permit to meet construction requirements. Highway District did have requirements for an approach off of Elder Road. Health District, of course, would require septic approval. DEQ would be required to give approval for the public water drinking system. Department of Water Resources did provide their standards for new wells to be drilled on site, and the Fire District didn't have any concerns. ITD didn't have any major objections. They do require an approach permit for 95 to be removed. The applicant had requested that they continue to work with ITD on keeping that approach, since it does serve the project site from the highway side. Staff and I think the hearing examiner also agreed that we could work with ITD and let the applicant work with ITD in reserving or maintaining that approach. The Sheriff's Office didn't have any concerns. Fish and Game, of course, there is a stream that traverses in the easterly part of the property. The applicant is willing to maintain that area with their development. And Kootenai Electric didn't have any major concerns either. We did solicit the project to the Coeur d'Alene Tribe. As you may know from the record, they did express their opposition to the project, indicating that it has an effect on the rural character of the area. And they furthermore provided their resource management plan as part of justification that this is rural and this is in character with that area. Staff did reach out with the tribe to try and coordinate with them, is if they could provide more comment as far as how in fact it is in conflict with the rural character. as well as it appeared that since the Fighting Creek gas station and smoke shop was also in the same designation, it appeared to be compatible with the surrounding area. So we reached out to the tribe, but the tribe did not provide further comment. During the public comment period, we did receive 205 comments. 197 of them were in support, 1 was in opposition, 3 were neutral, and 4 were unmarked. Again, staff's analysis here is we do believe that this use does fit in line with the commercial resort under the CUP classification. We do believe that it complies with the standards, and we do believe it does comply with the agency's standards as well. Hearing examiner heard this request. They provided their support as well, found it was compatible with the comp plan, compatible with surrounding homes and businesses in the area, and adequately addresses science constraints and hazards, and felt that the agency standards could be met as well. So that's kind of the conclusion of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions, should you have some.
Are they closed from November to April then?
Yes, they are closed. Thank you.
I have a couple questions. I just want to make sure I understand non-community public drinking water. That would be just for people who are allowed onto the business premises.
Correct. For the patrons and employees of the site.
Okay. And is there ever any consideration for noise? Because from my understanding, in some RV parks, they can get a little noisy at night.
Yeah, I do believe that they have in their agreement
So mention that a little bit.
of hours of quiet hours, that is, and I believe if they're from 10 o'clock p.m. to 7 a.m., if I have that correct, Rand, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So 10 p.m. And does the tribe in their responses typically always give you this type of response, or is this a response that's different from previous CUP applications?
This is typical with conditional use permit applications. We haven't done many of them. In fact, I think this is maybe the second one since the tribe has taken more of a stance in opposition.
Yeah.
The other one, of course, being right across the highway, which is pretty recent.
Yeah, okay. And then the only other question I have is just with respect to the bathrooms, because obviously there's different types of RV parks. And so if you're going to offer shower and bathroom facilities for the patrons, that's different than not offering them. And we have a situation we'll be looking at where they're not offered. So I'm just curious how much that could change the nature of the business, and maybe this isn't a question for you, but more for the applicant, between offering patron shower and bathroom facilities or not offering them, and how that would affect the nature of the business.
Are you meaning more as far as the impact, traffic?
Yes. For example, what is the definition of, camping? We know it includes RV parks or RVs. Does it also include tents?
The definition of camping does include tent camping.
Okay. Will the applicant include tent camping at all?
They're not, again, in their proposal, they did not mention tent camping, so I do not believe that is their plan.
But it doesn't say you can't do it.
It would be based on if an approval is granted, it would be based on the application proposal of the applicant. If it is different, or if the applicant is proposing something different than what has been approved, they will come to staff to see whether or not this change is minor in nature or if it's more of a major, substantial change. Changes that are minor in nature that still meet the required findings of the code are approved by the director, as it is considered to be insignificant. Changes that are considered substantial would then come back before the board. So I guess it would depend on what they had in mind if they chose to add tent camping, how many that would be, and whether or not the director would feel that it's a substantial change.
Yeah. Okay. That's it for me. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, thoughts on the proposal?
For myself, generally, overall, I don't have an issue with it. One of the things about the way I see my role on this board, and perhaps the board in general, is the fact that when we have these exception-type conditional use permit applications, they're going outside the norm a little bit. And so we have to, one, look and make sure it's not going to be disruptive to what our comprehensive plan says, but also the fact that we want to make sure that when we say yes to something today, that we know what we're saying yes to so that it doesn't kind of morph into something different. And it's not unusual. I've seen it. I'm sure most everyone in this room has seen it, where something starts off as A, and before you know it, it's morphed to B, and then C, and then D. And then it becomes another issue for community development to have to tend to. And so I just want to be diligent in the sense that what the applicant wants to do will be exactly what they say they're going to do, because ownership can change. They can say, well, let's add tent camping, for example. And if it doesn't say it can't do it, then it becomes a situation of, well, the paperwork never said we couldn't do it, so therefore, why can't I do it? As opposed to explicitly saying what you can do. And so I'm okay with it if we limit it to RV patrons only, whatever type of, as opposed to tent patrons.
Commissioners, Pat Braden, Civil Deputy Prosecutor for the record. I can answer that a little more. In every CUP approval, the first condition says thou shalt comply with the narrative and the site plan. So whatever, and there's no tent camping in this site plan. And so if they wanted to include tent camping, as Ben stated, the proper way would be to get a CUP amendment.
So it's inclusive then?
It would at least require director approval and possibly board approval, as Ben stated, but they cannot, in the absence of that, they cannot deviate from the narrative and site plan that were submitted as part of the application.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's good.
Okay.
It's always about the what ifs that we have to be thinking about, because this is that time. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, good thoughts on that. I'm comfortable with the conditions that are on there. And again, can't force people to follow the law. They got to do the right thing on their own. And if they don't, then we're stuck. With enforcing it.
What do you mean?
I'm just saying that they are required to tell us if they're changing. If they're,
Right.
to your point, if they're going to change to tent camping, they're required to tell us that.
Yes.
If they change and don't tell us, I mean, that's not something that we can.
That would be a code violation.
Correct.
Yes, yes. And that's really our job too, is to look out for the surrounding neighbors. Because we don't want to create a situation where all of a sudden what was a very quiet area zoned a certain way becomes very different all hours into the evening. So outside of that, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I move that we approve CUP 22-0020 Brand RV Park.
Second.
Commissioner Matari?
Aye.
Chair Duncan?
Aye. All right, item 3, CUP 23-0010 Camp Swan Lake RV.
I don't really need to go through a presentation on this, but I do have a couple questions about it with respect to the applicant and the intended use.
Sure.
Sure, yeah. I'd be happy, again, this is CUP 23-0010. Ben Tarbutton for the record. I don't know if you'd like to ask the questions. I can certainly help with what I can, with what I know.
Yeah. So from my understanding, that the RVs that will be staying there will not have any access to drinking water?
That is the proposal. The applicant has chosen to not provide a public drinking water system to meet DEQ requirements. They will be providing electricity. They will provide non-potable water for washing out and dump at the dump station.
Yep.
But as far as the proposal goes, they are not proposing to have water available.
And so that would lead to the next question of how long are people staying there and how often are people going to be going in and out to go refill their RVs with water and so forth.
That I
Because
couldn't tell you.
it's a different kind of camping, if you will, than
Yeah.
the previous one, where there is water hookups and where people, because a lot of people come up here and they stay for the whole summer.
Yeah.
But if they
Yeah.
don't have a hookup, then they're going to be going back and forth frequently with their RVs.
That's true, or it just may limit their clientele. I mean, if they're not interested in a park that doesn't have the amenities, that may just kind of limit their traffic as well.
So do we have any idea from them? Is the applicant available?
It's deliberation, so we wouldn't
Right.
be
Yeah.
able to take any
Wouldn't
public
even-
testimony.
Sure.
Anyway, so.
I mean, that's my only concern, is that it just opens the door for these folks just constantly streaming their RVs and vehicles back and forth in the area.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily too concerned about this particular location as far as, it doesn't seem like someplace that somebody would want to spend all summer, right? Just more of a transient, more of a lighter use, but I mean, we don't have the answer to that question.
You know,
so-
if it was closer to a main highway or something, I could see that, but it's really kind of out of the way. So it says, I want to stay for a little bit. How much people want to stay, I don't know.
I mean, it is pretty close to, I mean, it's at the intersection of Black Lake Road and Highway 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they have Highway 3 right adjacent to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, for what they're proposing, I don't necessarily have an issue with that. Yeah, because this is only 10 RV spots.
Correct.
It's much less. I mean, I get it. So it's,
And again, closed in the winter months.
yep. And I think the hours are actually more favorable as far as quiet time.
Yes, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Is quiet time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and they are also going to be working out an agreement that the clients will, or the customers will be agreeing to, with those being quiet hours, but yes.
Mm-hmm. Are there any businesses close by?
Let's see.
There's a convenience store near there.
Walking distance?
No.
If you give me just a moment here, I could probably pull that up. Let's see.
It's pretty rural, pretty remote, and I'm sure that's part of the attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Well-
this is, 5 tent sites, 10 RV sites. Remote area commerce, tourism, and recreation, and local businesses.
Yeah. So that's probably just going to be the limiting factor for the stay.
Yeah, I don't see any obvious commercial use other than as you go further to the east, there's that, I think, convenience store that Pat Braden had mentioned.
It's 15 minutes from I-90.
Yeah, as far as how,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem to be too far away, but
Yeah. No, I think in the end it's meant to be, I guess, a wilderness experience. So whatever you can bring with you is how long you're going to stay, largely. So I'm fine with it. I move that we approve CUP 23-0010 Camp Swan Lake RV.
Second.
Commissioner Matari?
Aye.
Chair Duncan?
Aye. All right, item 4, fee increase projections. And is David out?
David's out of the office.
Okay, so
So you-
Christine?
Oh, Christine drew the lucky straw on this one.
Okay.
Actually, we both did. Christina Garland, for the record, Community Development. So there, Brandy from the auditor's office suggested that we increase our fees to 12% throughout community development. I had proposed 5%. With the mass increases that we've been doing the last several years, I don't want people getting upset that we're raising our fees considerably every year. I know the building department does bring in quite a bit, and I've checked the city of Rathdrum, the city of Coeur d'Alene, and we're well over the amounts that we charge based on the surrounding cities. So I would suggest staying with the 5% increase rather than the 12%, but ultimately it's your call.
Pat, is it 5% or less we don't need a public hearing, or is it 5% or more?
It's 5% or less that you don't need the public hearing. More than 5% you would need a public hearing.
Okay.
I will double check that though.
And then how long do we have to make this decision? I mean, does it need to be made today, or we can think about it and?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we can make a decision, it'd be preferred. That way we can begin to change the things that we need to, adopt a resolution, schedule if it's going to be 12%, we're going to need to schedule a public hearing and so on. Either way, we have some changes administratively to do with our IMS system.
But would this be for October 1st implementation, or?
I think we would propose
Right away?
it as soon as possible.
Okay.
You know, one of the challenges with your department is, you know, you're busy, and we recognize that, and you need additional staff. But that increases the overhead of the county expenses. And, you know, community development either will be fully subsidized, partially subsidized, or zero subsidized by the taxpayer. Some blend in there, right? Obviously, you could have zero fees or, you know, remove some of the components of the process. But the reality is that, you know, we need to probably understand better the nature of the workload and developing some sort of metric to understand it. Because, for example, how long should someone wait when they submit a permit application? What is an acceptable amount of time?
Right.
If the acceptable amount of time is 30 days, then you need the staffing in order to meet that goal.
Right.
If the acceptable amount of time is 120 days, well, you don't need as much staffing, I would assume, to meet that goal. And so without that understanding, it's very hard to figure out, you know, what your staffing is and then how your fees can be calculated. You know, what is a good goal? You know, what is your service level, if you will, for when someone submits an application and we get a turnaround from a staffing perspective?
Sure, and what's also another variable that adds into the complexity of that is it's largely dependent on market. And so the amount of permits coming in the front door is going to depend on the economy and how people feel about the future. So we're also juggling that aspect as well.
Well, let me ask Pat this question. You know, in the private sector, they always have an expedition fee, right? If you want something to happen faster, you pay a little extra, and it'll go through a faster track, if you will. Is that something that's allowable under state law? That if someone wanted to move something quicker, they could pay a little more?
I think we could do that as long as the fees overall are not more than our expenses.
Sure.
So,
I guess if that's the case, I don't know how it's going to be the same amount of work to review a permit. I couldn't envision
maybe overtime.
I suppose maybe overtime, that would be the,
Yeah. Just trying to come up with some creative ways, because no one wants to ding people harder, but it really comes down to when community development comes before the board and says, we're overwhelmed, we need more staff. Or we have an annual step increase, that by default is going to increase the cost of the services.
Correct.
And it just only seems appropriate that we can have the people who are using those services pay for those services.
Would you like a separate meeting to discuss this, or just put it on for 2 weeks? Or our next community development meeting?
I think we should put it on the next one. I know you need to leave, but at least I just thought I wanted to just share some ideas, and then we can think about it more and come back and talk about it.
No, I like it.
So,
Okay,
So,
appreciate it.
all
so
right.
we'll just move to continue.
You don't need to do
Okay.
anything. We'll just put it back on for a couple weeks. So
Very good.
10:30, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just in time.